So we're going to change things up a little bit this morning. I'm going to ask Mr. Dave Oswald to lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance, if you wouldn't mind. Would you mind, Dave?
I'd be happy to. I just had to unmute first.
Yep.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Dave. And now, Rachel Marzon will help us with the invocation this morning. Rachel?
Thanks. Yeah, if you'll allow me a few moments for invocation, I wanted to touch on prayer and fasting a little bit today, because prayer and fasting are time-honored practices for many faiths, done at times as an outward symbol of an inward devotion to God. And for those who may not be aware, Ramadan started last Friday. It's a time of fasting and prayer to engage in spiritual reflection and draw closer to God. And for those who practice, it's one of the things where they let the rumblings of an empty stomach teach them the suffering of the less fortunate, remind them to appreciate what they have been blessed with. And that's why Ramadan is also known as a month of charity and generosity, which seems to fit so closely to the heart of Rotary that I wanted to do a prayer in honor of this time of year. So if you'll please bow your heads with me. We offer our thanks and gratitude for each member of our community and the opportunity that we all have to come together and do good. Dear God, may you bless our efforts and help us and sit with us and be present with one another and mindful of our purpose. Amen.
Thanks, Rachel. Very nicely done. Thank you so much. I know we have a couple of guests with us this morning. We have a former member, Jack Gibbons, Mr. Rotary. He's with us this morning. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Ken.
Hey, Jack.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
And we also have, I see Kenny Klusner sneak in there, the district governor designate.
You bet, Ken. I'm here.
There you go. What I do have to ask, what happened to the cat? Did he take a snoop this morning?
Well, I was actually on a meeting yesterday, and I had changed my background to a rhinoceros, but it occurred to me that the rear end was facing the screen, and my face was facing his rear end. So I decided it's time to change things up a bit.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be a little careful with what you put on a virtual background. It doesn't always turn out the way you expect it. So, well, anyway, we're glad to have you here. Do we have any more guests this morning that I didn't get a chance to see or acknowledge? Awesome. Well, before we get to our program, just a couple of announcements.
Excuse me, we have Bob Barnes.
Okay.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a prior Lake Rotarian, and District Governor Paul Perez referred me to the district calendar and suggested I might want to listen into this program today. We had an excellent one yesterday, but I'm just moving around the clubs now. It's pretty easy.
And we also have Martha Manson, Craig's wife. She'd be a guest. I know she's speaking, but.
Well, good morning, Martha. Good to have you here. And Bob, you're right. That's one of I guess that's one of the silver linings with virtual meetings. You just have to, you have to be vigilant when you see your guests. So I'm sorry I overlooked you there. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And I sent Dan Stanley a note yesterday. I thought you all did a wonderful job yesterday.
Good program. Thank you.
For those of you, I think there was a couple Lakeville Rotarians on just to kind of highlight the Prior Lake and the Ham Lake Blaine clubs went together yesterday and hosted an information session with a couple of folks from the U and from Mayo Clinic talking about testing and coronavirus and where it's all going. It was really very well done and I think we had like 140, didn't we, Kathy, on the attendance?
We did. So it was a very largely attended program.
Platform stayed up pretty well. My understanding is that, Bob, they've recorded it, and I think they're either going to put it up on the district website or on YouTube. So those of you that would have an interest in it, there was quite a number of good questions that were asked and answered. So I would refer you to that. Okay, so a couple of other announcements going forward. This is World Immunization Week, just to kind of remind everybody. This was from Rotary International with Rotary's commitment to reducing polio as a kind of a major milestone this week. Congratulations to the international team. We had Tom, Jim Christian, and Peggy Dunow, the Aringa Hope grant funded this week, right, Jim?
That is correct. Yeah, the matching funds came in about 97,000, so about 188, just a little over 188,000 for the warehouse receipt program, which was pretty much an add-on or a supplement to the Aringa Hope microfinance. A little bit differently deployed, but yeah.
Yeah, but nice work. I know you all have worked on that quite a bit. Yeah. Tom, I see you've
Tom's done an excellent job.
I look at Tom's background now, so now we have the what, a gorilla in the background there?
Well, that's visiting the gorillas in Rwanda.
Well, I know you've all of you have put, three of you put a lot of effort in there, so good work by the international team. Thank you so much. Reminder that tomorrow evening is a special night of connecting. We have John Huko, who's the General Secretary and CEO of Rotary International, will be speaking. This is in place of the conference of clubs that was supposed to be taking place this weekend. So it starts tomorrow night. Oh, thank you, Kathy. And I would urge you that if you have a chance, and especially if I know there's quite a few questions that have come in regarding Rotary and Rotary International, this would be a good time to do that. Any updates on Richard you'd like to share on Taste of Lakeville this morning?
Hey, good morning. We're tracking along. We've got our August 26th date, and after kind of a little bit of a lull, we're moving forward here and making all the adjustments. We'll have a meeting afterwards, right after this meeting of the Taste of Lakeville team members. Please stay on. We still need, appreciate if someone from the club could step up and help with the raffle, helping us out with raffle. So if you're interested, please let me know, or stay after for the meeting right after this meeting. A couple highlights. We've got kind of a cool live auction item. Looks like we'll be zeroing in on a golf cart. So that's gonna stir up hopefully some pretty good buzz. All members, if you can please think about sponsors out there, help with the sponsors team, and also auction items. And someone mentioned last week that if you're not quite sure about what to do with auction, you can always donate cash. Cash is always king. We had a good subcommittee yesterday with the new twist with Taste of Lakeville to provide an outlet for community service. Going to be under a tagline of something like "Community That Unites," where we'll offer up some vendor space to interact with community service organizations like 360 communities. So those are the highlights for Taste of Lakeville. A short planning meeting will start right after this meeting, and thank you very much.
Okay, Richard. Thank you very much. And Kenny Klusner, did you have anything you wanted to add from the district level this morning from an announcement standpoint?
I just again commend you for putting your programs on the district website. Very helpful. I know I saw Bob yesterday on the Mankato program, and now here he is again this morning in Lakeville. So nice to see others are making their rounds around the district. Tomorrow, I'll draw your attention to noon. Faribault is going to be having their 100th anniversary. So noon Friday, you can just go to the district website. There's a hyperlink right there. And then the only other thing, Ken, is the COVID-19 live stream telethon Saturday morning, 10 a.m. So that'd be, just a couple things. I'm not sure where Lakeville sits, but if there are grant requests for the disaster grant or for the special district grant, those are due tomorrow, May 1st. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kenny, thanks for that. And yes, we do have a couple of grants. I think I saw them go in yesterday, right, Peggy? Yeah, so we're good. So we're good with that. Awesome, very good. The only other thing, kind of on a personal note, you may want to keep Lisa Monet in our thoughts. She had a unfortunate accident earlier this week. She's doing fine. She's recovering, but she got banged up on her motorcycle pretty well. So keep her in your thoughts. If you want to send her a note, I'm sure she would appreciate it. Okay. Any other questions? Any other announcements before we move to the spotlighted program we have today? Well, if not, I'm going to turn it over to Craig and Martha, our world-renowned travelers, or renowned world travelers. I'm not sure how they like to be referred to. They have quite a story to tell. So, Craig, why don't you and Martha take it away?
All right. Thanks, Ken. It's nice to be world-renowned, I guess. This is my lovely wife, Martha.
Good morning.
I'd like a big round of applause for her. She is normally not up at this time, especially during quarantine. So I appreciate her being on board to check my facts. But basically, thought what I'd do this morning is recently we took a cruise around South America. And I'm sure most of you might be more interested in how the coronavirus crisis touched us while we're out on the cruise ship. So I thought I'd share some of the highlights of the cruise, and then focus on some of the things that happened as we were coming back to the U.S. My friend Jim Doyak said about this. He said most of us were here like frogs in water waiting to boil, and you guys just kind of parachuted in right into the boiling water. And that's kind of true, because we left on February 21st, and we were scheduled to come back on March 23rd. So right while all of this was happening, we were on a ship, fine dining, sitting by the pool, that kind of thing. So it was kind of interesting what happened. Kathy I just put a few slides together on a couple of the ports, just a few pictures. So we'll switch between me or us talking and the slides. So here's this well-crafted slideshow. Kathy actually made this happen, so that's good. I'm responsible for the content. But like I said, we were scheduled to leave on the 21st of February and return on March 23rd. It actually got extended by about a week because of the virus crisis, and we'll get into that. So I guess if you could advance the slide one, Kathy. We started out with a couple days in Buenos Aires, which I don't know if a lot of you have been there, but it's really a cosmopolitan city, really wide streets. In fact, they have the widest street in the world. They have the widest river in the world, a lot of parks, a lot of monuments, very safe, walkable, a lot of restaurants. We stayed in maybe the best hotel I've ever stayed in my life there. And it was really cool. My birthday was on February 22nd, so we had dinner there. And it's really puzzling to me why Argentina is always a wreck, because it should be really prosperous. It's about a third the size of the U.S., a lot of resources, but I guess there's a lot of corruption and always hyperinflation. So it's always been troubled from that standpoint. But I mean, the highlights there are the waterfront, the neighborhoods. Soccer is king. It's a cool place to go, and it's very affordable. One of the highlights, if you could advance the slide one, Kathy. We went to a wine tasting with a sommelier, and I knew Argentina had good wines. I didn't realize how good. They're best known for, this is a map, I don't know if you can see it or zoom in on it, but the wine region is in Western Argentina, and they're most famous for their Malbecs from the Mendoza region. So we've had this wine tasting with a bunch of wine snobs. We're really not tremendous wine snobs, becoming more so, but we ended up buying 7 bottles, and they were pretty cheap, and we brought them on the ship, and they were fantastic. So one of the things that I put on my sort of bucket list is to go back to Argentina and check out that wine region. It's about a 9-hour flight from Atlanta, so it's hard to get to, but it was kind of cool. So after a couple of days in Buenos Aires, we got onto our ship, and the ship we were on is called it's Oceana Cruise Lines, and it's the Marina. It has 1,200 passengers, so it's smaller as cruise lines go, and it's really known for its food and service. There's 4 specialty restaurants, a French restaurant, Asian, steakhouse, and an Italian restaurant. So highly recommend that if you're going to go cruising. So if you can advance, the first stop was Uruguay. Well, one thing I'd mention is when we got on the ship, we were on a cruise last fall to the Baltic, and we were on the same ship in the same cabin. So it was like coming home, kind of. I actually hid a little business card in the cabin and went back to find it, and it was gone. So they thoroughly clean these things. Anyway, a couple of highlights of Uruguay. By South American standards, very stable country. Only 8% inflation, a lot of beaches. All of the waterfronts are public by law, so they have bike paths. We went on a couple of bike tours. Montevideo, the capital, is a little run down, but interesting. A lot of history there. Cool country. And that's it for Uruguay. So the next stop, it took a couple days to get out there, were the Falkland Islands. So on this trip, we did have a lot of sea days because South America is really big, and we ended up going almost all the way around it. I guess this was I'm looking at my notes now, on February 27th, we were on the ship going out to the Falklands, and it was the first indication that there was any trouble. The Dow was down about 1,000. We had access to CNN and Fox News, a couple channels, didn't watch it a whole lot, but all of a sudden the Dow's down, and I follow the market pretty closely. I'm going, oh, this is not good. And then for the week, the Dow was down about 3,200. So this is about when the virus thing was starting. And, but we weren't too concerned at this point. We had other things to do. So when we were at sea, we laid by the pool. It was summer down there, so super nice. We actually took bridge lessons. We're not that good at it, but it was fun. And they had a nice health club on board, and so pretty relaxing things. And so, like I said, it took 2 days to get to the Falklands, and we're really kind of lucky to get in there because it's the seas around the Falklands is very close to Antarctica. It's kind of the launch point, and a lot of times people can't dock there because it's too rough. We were lucky enough to get in, but very remote, no trees. Not many people there, but interesting. The highlight, obviously, was we took a Range Rover type vehicle, forward wheel drive vehicle, and went out to a place called Volunteer Point, which is pictured here. And it took, Martha,
2 hours.
a couple hours to get out there. And so first we were driving on these roads, gravel road, and we went through this gate. And the guy says, okay, now we go off-road. And Martha said, I thought we were already off-road. It was really rough. I mean, we were literally going through swamp and rutted terrain, and I guess across this area is where they had the war between the British and the Argentines. There was some wreckage, and there were some tours you could take about that war. Interesting that the UK was able to go there and fight this force. I won't get into that, but it's kind of an interesting history lesson if you want to go back and look at that. Well, when we got out to these, out to the volunteer point, there are thousands of penguins. It was unbelievable. Here's one picture of me. You could go right up to them. They'd yell at you if you got too close, but they weren't afraid of people. They were waddling around. They were all over the place. So it was a pretty good experience. I've got all kinds of videos I could show you, which I won't do. So after that, we were heading towards the southernmost tip of South America, which is, I guess, kind of a bucket list item. The southernmost tip is Cape Horn. It's on you can see on the map there, this was a big screen map on the cruise ship by the pool. I took a couple pictures as we went. You can see it's Isla Hornos, which is I believe Spanish for Horn Island. But we got down there and the captain actually went around that island, circumnavigated it so we could see it and appreciate it. I think the next slide shows a picture of that. Very bleak, nothing. I think there's a lighthouse on there, but it's the southernmost point of South America. Let's see. Yeah, and one thing about this area, it's the Straits of Magellan. It's usually super rough, very treacherous for ships back in the day, wavy, windy, cold. We were very lucky. It was warm, or relatively warm, and relatively calm. I mean, it was still pretty windy. I guess one of the people on the boat said that when the Bounty went through there, the mutiny on the Bounty ship, it took them 31 days to get through this relatively short channel because the winds coming from the west were just outrageous, and a lot of mariners had trouble down there back in the day. But we started going through the fjords and a channel called Beagle Channel, which it's named after the British ship Beagle that went through there early on. It forms a border between Argentina and Chile, and it's just miles and miles and miles of mountains on both sides. The picture doesn't do it justice that you see on the screen, but those waterfalls, I mean, that mountain is giant, and it goes straight up out of the channel, and it looks the same on the other side in varying degrees. And that waterfall is probably 3-4 times the size of Minnehaha Falls, maybe even more. And it's just constant. So those mountains are huge, and you just go for, it seemed like days through scenery like that. You'd be working out, looking out the window, and you'd see this. And then the mountains got more rugged and less rugged. I think the next slide shows, they obviously made an effort to get to this area, but it's probably the most impressive glacier in the world. Again, the picture really doesn't do it justice, but we went out there and the boat did some 360s. Look how, you can see how calm the water is. I mean, it was a beautiful day, probably 70 degrees. And this is the kind of scenery you see down there. It's kind of world renowned. And I wasn't expecting it to be that spectacular. It rivals or is better than, I think it's better than Alaska, at least all in. The next stop was a place called, I can't pronounce it. How do you pronounce it?
Ushuaia.
Ushuaia, Argentina. It's the end of the world, super picturesque. There's the first national park, I think, of Argentina was there. There's glaciers, waterfalls.
Tierra del Fuego.
Yeah, it's in Tierra del Fuego. It's the furthest south city. It was established as a penal colony, a prison colony back in the day. But so we went there and went to some national parks, beautiful scenery, et cetera, et cetera. I think this slide is, I got a couple notes before that. We stopped in Chile, our first stop in Chile. There's a whole lot more I could say about Ushuaia, but I won't. It's beautiful. The town is down in the port, mountains towering over it. But we went to a town called Punta Arenas in Chile. These towns in southern, back up, Kathy, I'm not there yet. Anyway, these towns in Chile, when the Panama Canal opened way back in the day, it kind of killed them. So, and there's signs of unrest in Chile right now, so a lot of graffiti. It's kind of concerning, but it was safe, but there's a lot of social unrest. So then we got to Patagonia. Well, Patagonia is actually the whole area down in Tierra del Fuego. And it's known for the mountains, and you know, you've seen the jackets and the apparel. While we were there, we landed at a place called Puerto Chacabuco.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. And we took a spectacular tour up to a town called
Cohique.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. But the tour was run by a German woman who had emigrated there. And the tour guide was a German who taught Spanish. So it was kind of they're really good guides and an impressive tour, but they took us way up in these mountains, and you can see, you know, the earlier slide was the first waterfall we saw. If you could move back one, Kathy. This waterfall, super impressive. You can see this view. The pictures never do it justice, but just spectacular views on the way up. And it's known for the fly fishing. A lot of people come down there, a lot of tourism for outdoors type stuff, trekking, that kind of stuff. So next place in Patagonia, we stopped at this place called Puerto Montt. There are two large volcanoes there that dominate the scenery. And again, you know, you can show spectacular scenery all day long, but one of these volcanoes, not the one you're looking at, there's actually a ski area on the top of that one. This was taken in a national park. The other volcano erupted about 15 years ago and covered everything with ash. You can still see the ash on the side of the roads. They have to grade it. So it's a pretty volcanically active area. But beautiful national park. We stopped and saw llamas, deep lakes, just a great part of the world. But surprisingly poor. And, you know, other than the tourism, there's quite a contrast between the tourists and the beauty and then the people that actually have to live there. It's pretty tough. Anything to add, Martha? I've been rambling. You know?
Not at this point.
I should tune in to see how many people are still on. Can you tell, Kathy? Anyway, next place we stopped was a town called San Antonio. And it was kind of a dingy port city, not much to see there. And the reason we stopped there is because the more scenic city called Valparaiso several years ago had so much labor strife at the port that the cruise ship said, screw it. And they left Valparaiso and started landing in San Antonio, which caused a huge economic blow to Valparaiso. It was an incredibly dumb move by them. But so Valparaiso has really gone downhill. And this is near the capital, Santiago. It's the population center. Super rich history. I mean, Valparaiso is a cool town. It's like San Francisco, except you know, old buildings, a little rundown, pretty poor, but very interesting. Streets are really narrow. There's vernaculars, and there's street art everywhere.
Yeah, it's very colorful.
Yeah, so it was really cool to see that. We spent a lot of time walking around in there. It's actually a World Heritage site. You can see. That's kind of typical of the town. It's all like that. I've got pictures of the steepness and the overview. There's shanties, there's upscale hotels, there's rich people all mixed in. That's an interesting place to see. Then there's a sister city to it, which I didn't include any pictures, but it's called Vina del Mar. I don't know what that means, something of the sea. But as soon as you go to that city, it's a tourist, more rich area, and all of a sudden you don't see any graffiti, you don't see any stray dogs, you don't see any squalor. It's beautiful. So there's a contrast between rich and poor going on. And while we were there, we went out to a winery called the Indomita Winery. I may have a picture of that. Yeah, it's high up on the hill. Again, pictures never do it justice, but that's the vineyard below. We sampled some Chilean wines, which are also excellent. We learned a little bit about that. So I would recommend that if you're wine lovers, you should try some Chilean and Argentinian wines. They're fantastic. So the next day, we went to, I guess the last normal port was in Coquimbo, Chile, where we visited a distillery of the national drink of both Chile and Peru called Pisco. It was kind of a disastrous tour. I won't even get into that. You can talk to me about that sometime. Our guides didn't speak English. They took smoke breaks. They were late. It was unbelievable, but it was fun nonetheless. And so the next day we were supposed to stop in a town. What was it called, Martha?
Pisco.
No, it was a town called Pisco in Peru. Yeah. And we got up early for this tour, and we were having breakfast. It was about 8 o'clock, and we're supposed to dock at 7. And we go, wait a minute, the ship didn't stop. And we looked at the map, and we went right by it. So we knew something was up. There was no announcement, and so people are getting a little nervous. And yeah, it was really the first indication. Thank you. That this was March 12th, I think, that something was going on. The stock market was limit down. It was the day when the stock market started crashing, and they imposed a European travel ban. And I guess that was, I got screwed up. That was the day before this tour. European travel ban got imposed. So all the Europeans on the ship started freaking out. There were lines at down at the registration desk and the concierge desk. They were trying to make travel arrangements. So it was the first. Of course, the Americans were going, "Hey, no problem. We're Americans. We got no problem." So it was business as usual. We're sitting at breakfast, and all of a sudden we said, "Wait a minute, we overshot the port." And the captain came on and said, "Well, Peru has just closed their ports. They're not going to allow us into the country." And we were supposed to go to Machu Picchu, so we were bummed. It's a good thing we didn't get there, because the people that did get there were stuck there for another couple of weeks and had to have the U.S. military come get them. So we were almost in that group. But we looked at the map, and we were like heading to Lima. And then all of a sudden the captain came on and said, "Well, all the ports are closed. We're heading back to Santiago, Chile." And we go, "Oh, that's a bummer." And so Martha scrambled and got a plane reservation from Santiago, Chile, or from Santiago to Miami at the price of $4,500. I mean, and everybody was doing that, making plane reservations. So anything to add on that?
No, I was actually into Atlanta, but
No.
yeah, but no, it's just wanted to have something out there in case that's what we thought. We thought we were going to fly home from Santiago. So just got a plane reservation, and it was a little unsettling to know that you're not going where you're supposed to go. And so, people were obviously nervous and just wondering, what was going to happen. So yeah, this I guess this is when we started becoming a little unsettled about about the cruise and where we were going. So.
Yeah, this is March 14th, middle of March. You guys had already been in this for a couple of weeks. We saw on the news that, I guess on the 12th, there was I already mentioned that. So, so then we were heading back to Santiago, and all of a sudden the captain comes on, and Dutch accent guy said, "Well, now the Chilean ports, you went ahead too far there, Captain. We're not there yet."
She's trying to get you there.
Okay, I'll move along. He announced the Chilean ports were closed, and he says, "We're not quite sure what we're going to do," but he started heading north. So I have this travel journal that I write in all the time. It's kind of cool to look back at. And in there I said, "Hey, we're lost at sea. We have no idea where we're going now." So we've still got the Chilean flight reservations, and after a while we're going to have all kinds of flight reservations. And then I noted that we still had pina coladas by the pool, and we had dinner. We were having dinner in this steakhouse. And the captain came on and announced that we're going to the Panama Canal, and everybody on the ship started cheering and clapping. But he said, "Don't clap too soon because we don't have a slot to go through yet." We go, "Oh, all right."
Yeah, I guess they make reservations at the Panama Canal months in advance. So we were rolling the dice a bit.
Yeah, and it costs $500,000 to go through the Panama Canal. So I said, well, I think they're going to probably try to dump us there and send us home from Panama City or from Panama. So the rumors started circulating then. It was like the Europeans were already panicked and mad about their plane tickets. They were getting testy. There was a couple we met from Russia. This guy was a German guy, but he was a arms dealer, and he had like the presidential suite, and his wife was named Olga. She called herself Olga from the Volga. She wore these, anyway, outrageous couple. She had 10 suitcases on the cruise, but he was into the rumors. And let's see. Yeah, I read in the journal I had, there's the news was talking about panic at the airports. I'm saying, wow, maybe we'll be late enough where it'll blow over. We didn't know our final destination. All of a sudden, we looked down on our floor, four doors down. There was 24-hour guards at this inside cabin, and the rumors were that this guy had assaulted the captain. He'd threatened to jump off the ship. So the Russian people were adding to these rumors, but it was kind of surreal. And I'll flash through kind of the stuff that happened on March 16th. The market was down 10%, the worst in history. They gave us free drinks, but then they said we're going to replace all the room keys. So we're wondering why that is. They started putting in maximum cleanliness policies. So we couldn't pick up salt shakers or ketchup bottles. The menus were now paper. They opened all the doors on the ship, including the bathroom doors. No door handles could be touched. They stopped handing out bottles of water. They shut down the laundry facilities, the washer and dryer. Temporarily. And we're going, wait a minute, we think the virus is on the ship. And they were constantly cleaning everything. So these people, they went to great lengths. It was pretty impressive, actually, what they did to sanitize the ship.
But there was no coronavirus on the ship. So no. Just to clarify, we think there was probably some kind of a gastrointestinal thing that they had come across, and so I think that's what sparked the extra cleanliness. But then they just went on with it because of the coronavirus possibility.
Yeah. So that's March 16th. On the 7th, on 17th, we crossed the equator, which was kind of cool. And we found out our destination would be Miami. So everybody appreciated that. And the rumor was, and this was in the paper, there was a high-level Canadian official on the boat. There's a lot of Canadians. And apparently he was the international trade minister. He was the former mayor of Toronto, former defense minister. And the rumor was that he called Trudeau and Trudeau called Trump, and they allowed us to land because of all these connections. The only thing that was, I'm sure, is true is that the guy was from Canada, but it was that was flying through the ship. So we finally got up to the Panama Canal, and we anchored outside the canal, and there were hundreds of ships sitting there. And I'm going, we'll never get through here. The news said the U.S. was shut down. It was pretty tense on the ship, even though we were still eating great restaurants and having drinks and working out. They never closed the bars. That's a revenue source, but they kept handing out drinks and bar snacks. So it was kind of interesting that the selective enforcement. But then we finally got the news we were going to go through the canal on Friday at 7 a.m. So we were anchored for a couple of days, but we did get through. And you can see the canals I won't dwell on this, but it was pretty impressive. You can see how high up that lock takes you. There's 3 locks in the canal, up and down, and it goes through the Continental Divide. And our ship barely fit in there. The bigger cruise ships can't go in there for 2 reasons. They're too wide and they don't fit under the 3 bridges that go across the canal, which are really high up. But it was really cool going through these locks. The other thing about the canal that I think is cool is I thought it was like a long ditch, but it's really like some people called it similar to the Amazon River cruise. There's jungle on each side. There's not a lot of civilization. There's a railroad and a highway that go along it, but really impressive scenery. And then you can see where they cut through the mountains to go to do this. So it was more impressive than I thought it would be. So that was cool. I was kind of mad that we gave it back to Panama. It was anyway. And then in my journal, I wrote on the 20th, people were running out of medications. Yeah, you can see here on this slide, that's where they cut through. That's the Continental Divide. Back when they built this, they manually had to do it with labor. A lot of people died of malaria. It was an unbelievable project. One of the things they told the workers is that there were gold in one of the hills to make them work harder. There really wasn't, but there was like fool's gold. So all these guys worked like mad to dig. So there was a lot of stories like that. Anyway, on the 20th, the market was down another 5%. At that point, I said, this is an overreaction. And on the 21st, which was Saturday, I got a haircut on the ship. Paid $50. It was great. So I'm still, I'm almost in need of a haircut, but another benefit. And then on Sunday, we were worried about whether we'd be able to get off the ship in Miami. And sure enough, on the 23rd, we docked in Miami. And we were the first off the ship. And it was like the apocalypse. It was weird. We looked and there's nothing going on out because we'd been in that port before. There was really no activity. All these cruise ships were parked. Seemed like about 50 cruise ships just parked. I don't know, Martha.
We were pretty sheltered on the ship as far as the virus goes. We never had it at all on the ship. And then just to walk out of port and then you just feel like, oh, now I'm exposed. Now we got in a cab and, you're kind of looking at the cab driver going, oh, does he have it? And then we were driving to the airport and there's absolutely no traffic. And then walking into the airport, there's like hardly anybody in there. And as you can see, all the flights are canceled, the listing of the departures. And so it was really, it's kind of unnerving and yeah. I mean, like Craig said, everybody else had a chance to kind of get used to this gradually, but we were just kind of thrust into it. And so it was.
Yeah, the Miami airport was vacant. We got back to Minneapolis, airport was vacant. Came home, the roads were vacant.
Yeah. I just want to add too, we did not, because we didn't know exactly what we were going to come up against when we got to Miami, because other cruise ships have people have been quarantined in their rooms. They've get off the ship and they have to go through extensive health evaluations and temperature testing and questionnaires and everything, and we had absolutely nothing. We just got off and we left the port, and so it was.
Yeah, it was actually surprising because I thought we'd have to get off the ship. At least they'd take our temperature or something. And
it was my worst nightmare that we'd get quarantined on the ship. So I just was praying the entire cruise that didn't happen. And it didn't, thankfully.
We're still trying to figure out the airline tickets and
yeah.
we had several flights. Well,
right.
You had several flights canceled and.
Yeah. But the airlines were working with us, and so.
Yeah. So in the end, we got a free Caribbean cruise. Got through the Panama Canal, and the cruise company gave us half our money back towards a future cruise. So they handled it really well.
It wasn't that it wasn't really a hardship compared to
Oh yeah,
a lot of other
you
cruise
guys had it
ships.
much worse than us.
Well, here, and then a lot of other cruise ships that had the virus. It was, not pleasant for them. So we're very thankful that even though we were diverted, all is well. So.
Yeah. So that's our brief summary of our trip.
Well, it sounds like it's a little bit different than you anticipated, but obviously you made it back eventually. But it'll be memorable for a lot of reasons, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Anybody have any questions for Martha and Craig?
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Judy. How are you today?
Hi, Judy.
Hi. So my cousin and I had 4 relatives that were on the cruise ship Zandam that came in just about a week later than you guys did that, and they did have coronavirus and 4 deaths on that cruise. And it was unbelievable. We'd spent 2 weeks working with government officials in Washington and in Minnesota here, trying to get them to negotiate coming into port. So it sounds like after my cousin has sworn never to go on another cruise again, but it sounds like you're willing to go on another cruise.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we already signed up for one.
You did.
We're signed up for one in the fall.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was going to say you might want to wait till about a year from now.
Yeah. I mean, the one in the fall is kind of, we'll have to see, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting, but it does. So what my question is, I guess, when you were on the cruise ship, the one that my cousin was on, they were really good with keeping them informed about what was going on and what they were hearing. And, they started like a cruise Facebook page to keep everybody posted. Was your cruise, I don't know what line you were on, but were they really good with keeping you up to date with what was going on after it started to unfold?
Yeah, I would say pretty much. I mean, basically really all they needed to keep us updated on is, where, what port we were eventually going to go into, and that they had decided on the Panama Canal, and then we had to wait a couple days there, and then when we were going to go and what time. And so there really wasn't any like health statusing that they had to do with us. So the captain would come on like probably once a day and just give us, which he usually does anyway, but when you're at sea, and just to kind of give us an update on our ports and all of that. But we never had, the virus, and we all, like Craig said, we had this security team at the room down the hall from us, and the curiosity was just overwhelming, like what is going on down there. And so I know I at a few times suspected that, well, maybe there is a coronavirus case and they're just keeping this person quarantined and they're not telling us. And so you kind of start to wonder. But actually, the guy, we got to know this couple, and we were kind of flabbergasted when we found out that it was them. But the guy has very severe anxiety, and he is prone to it. And he just, when all this started happening, it just kind of set him off, and he was threatening to jump off the ship. So they had to put him in an inside cabin and have, security there all the time. So that was, I don't know, that was the only time that I thought, oh, maybe there really is coronavirus on the ship. But, they would have told us, and we didn't. And so it all worked out.
Yeah, that was funny.
I have a question, well, more of a comment, but also a question. So this trip turned out to be, it sounds like your perspective was it was an adventure more than an ordeal. And what would you attribute your experience being more of an adventure than an ordeal?
Well, because it really didn't turn out to be an ordeal. I think, I think in the end, the only thing that really happened was a lot of people were worried for no reason. But, well, I mean, there was reason, but it didn't come to pass.
Right.
And we were in a great setting. So it just became kind of interesting. But my biggest concern was the stock market crashing, and I wasn't going to be able to do anything about it.
Yep.
So
Well, it sounds like attitude was the difference.
What's that?
It sounds like attitude was the difference.
Yeah.
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah. Because there was a lot of people freaking out. These, that was real. The people that were locked in the room, that was the rumors that that guy had assaulted the captain, that they were mad about turning around. Somebody said there was a mutiny. And then when we finally figured out, we knew these people,
Yeah.
and it was nothing like that.
And then it just, it was very sad. I felt really bad for them. And, they were confined to their room and, and
Yeah, for days.
Yeah, for days. They finally got out and they could stay on floors where there were no, no exits, like no, railings or access to the sea. But I don't know, people were, there were definitely a lot of people that were concerned, and but yeah, it's a matter of attitude. And I have to say, just not having the virus on the ship made, for me, was the made all the difference, because I couldn't even imagine being confined, in one of those rooms for 2 weeks. Just my worst nightmare, because they're very small, and so Craig and I probably wouldn't have been really good friends at the end of that.
she's heard all my jokes.
Right. But anyway, yeah, I'd say attitude is a big part of it. And the only disappointment we had is we didn't get to go to Machu Picchu, but we could do that another time. So, and then like Craig said, Panama Canal was kind of on our bucket list, and we got to check that off. So that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, comments for Craig and Martha? Well, thank you both. It was, like I said, I'm sure it'll be memorable for a lot of reasons. A lot of people are surprised at how beautiful that part of the world is. It's kind of a contrast. You have on one hand you have a lot of beauty, and on the other hand it can be very, very stark and very barren. So I think it's an interesting contrast with that. So
I was pleasantly surprised. It's worth going. Yeah.
It's very beautiful.
So it sounds like you would go back and you'd recommend it. So that's an important thing. Well, thank you both for coming in and sharing this morning. Really appreciate it. Martha, special shout out for being up at this time of day. I want to, as we do with all of our speakers, we always make a contribution in your name to the 360 communities as part of our honorarium this year. So thanks again for coming in. We will do that. So I guess I'm sorry?
I said thank you.
You're very welcome. We'll be interested in hearing about your next exploits. So we'll keep you on. Any happy dollars this morning? Looks like a lot of people are happy out there this morning. Maybe that's just your virtual background. I don't know. No, I guess nobody's happy this morning.
I'm happy.
Hey, Paul.
My daughter did a great job on praying today. I do think she should be fined for not blessing the foods in the hand that have prepared it, however. Just saying.
Should one bless food when fasting?
Like I say, fasting and food, is food being served at your location there?
I'm not downstairs, so I don't know. But, I did have a happy dollar. My mom, some may be aware, fell, Gladys, and she broke her hip. But surgery went well, and she's coming out of the hospital today.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. We'll give her our regards.
She wants to know when the next 501 party is.
Well, we'll have to make sure we extend a special invitation to her when Mr. Wentworth gets that on the docket.
All right.
Please give her our regards. Anybody else happy this morning?
Hey, Ken, this is Kenny Closter.
Yes.
You can have Kathy bill me for a happy dollar and I can PayPal or Venmo or whatever. But I'd like to thank Craig and Martha for bringing back some very good memories. My wife was here for a little bit. I called her over from her office, and we were able to spend a week down in Mendoza. And we were not wine connoisseurs, still are not wine connoisseurs, but fell in love with their Malbec. And if you pair that with a nice double-decker filet mignon of Argentinian beef, I don't think there's anything better in the world. So brought back some great memories. Thank you guys very much.
A lot of people go to Mendoza that are not wine oriented, and they come away with a much different appreciation for it, Kenny. Thank you for sharing. Any other happy dollars this morning?
I have one.
Yes, Mr. Oswald.
So many of you know my youngest daughter, our youngest daughter, Catherine, who's a Lakeville resident, has been diagnosed with COVID-19, and she has been self-quarantined since 4 weeks ago tomorrow. We got news from her yesterday that she had her first full night's sleep, and she had been troubled by not being able to hold any food down, but this week she's been able to hold her food, and she's advanced to things like omelets and things like that. So there is progress being made in her household, and for that, $1 doesn't seem quite enough. Tomorrow, she will celebrate her 40th birthday. Unfortunately, I think she'll still be in the self-quarantine. She has a doctor's appointment today, so we'll see what that comes up with. But progress, and so I'm very happy for answered prayers and for progress.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have to confess, I was not aware of her having the COVID. Wow, that's a major accomplishment in this day and age. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank God.
Yes, thank God.
Say, Ken, Greg Paterka. I have a happy dollar for our oldest grandchild, Chloe, who's 16. She's a junior at Prior Lake High School. And she sent us a copy of her midterm grades yesterday. She's always been a good student, but she's got straight A's going this quarter. And even an A- in chemistry. And she was really struggling with that last quarter. So we're pretty proud of Chloe.
I can see why. Yeah. Chemistry is one of those interesting ones. If you're doing distance learning, I'm curious about how you do a lab.
I don't know how they do it.
Well, certainly something to be proud of. I'm sure she'll continue to do well. Thank you.
You bet.
Well, I guess that's about as happy as we are. But lots of good things to share. Thank you so much. Okay, well, just like I said, one more reminder that the special night of connecting is tomorrow. Kathy, did I miss anything this morning?
No, just for folks to stay on for the Taste of Lakeville meeting.
Taste of Lakeville, right? I think that's pretty much SOP these days. So, but always helps to make a reminder. Alan, what's the best way to send money to you for happy dollars and things of that nature?
I think probably what we'll have to do is when we're all back together again, it's just going to have to be Is It the Truth? And people can figure out whether they need to throw in a 5 or a 10 or a 2 or what do they need to do. So otherwise, it's trying to mail a dollar here and there through the mail, obviously, is not very efficient for anybody.
Well, I assume we're not taking Bitcoin yet, are we?
I don't think we're taking Bitcoin, and to my knowledge, we're not on Venmo or anything like that to be able to figure out how that works either. Maybe that's something, if this continues, I'll have to figure out how to do.
Okay, well, we can always look at those new platforms if we have to. Yeah. I think we had mentioned last week we had a good feedback from the folks at Brackets. They were the staff there was quite appreciative of our contribution. And so it looks like we'll know a little bit more later today from the governor's announcement, but I still think it'll be probably at least early June at the very earliest before we get back into physical meeting mode. So we will press on, keep the cards and letters coming in. If there's any suggestions I think we've kind of evolved from our first meeting being in a virtual mode. It's come along. I see new, from where I sit, I see new virtual backgrounds. People are a little more comfortable with it. So we'll continue to move forward. Next week, we have a presentation from Ed Merrick, the incoming district governor for next year. And we're going to be talking about the Better Angels program, Braver Angels program, excuse me. It's been rebranded a little bit. So you'll want to tune in for that. So thanks to our guests today. Jack, always good to see you. Kenny, good to have you here. And Bob, please come back and join us again whenever you have the opportunity. So with that, I think we will move to the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Ken.
So long, fun seekers.
Taste Lakeville team, please stay on. Take a couple minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, couple minute break here, and be right back.